back. This is the SpED Space with Nick Coletti, where we talk about all things special education. Today on the show, my guest is Dr. Trish Broadbent. Dr. Broadbent, thank you for being here.
Thanks for inviting me.
I actually meant to ask you before we even started. Do you prefer Trish? Do you prefer Dr. Broadbent?
Trish is fine.
Trish is fine. Okay,
Yeah,
I should have.
Trish is fine.
There was like I was like, okay, I got to remember this one thing I need to ask before we start, and that was it. Trish and I know each other for a long time now.
Long time.
Yeah, I went to school with your daughter.
Yeah.
We were in the same grade for many years together.
Yeah.
And we recently reconnected thanks to your daughter.
Yes.
And
thanks to your online social media.
I know. See, I need to thank you for saying that, because I need to record more social media. I mean, that's what, we're here doing a little bit of podcasting and whatnot, but I need to get better with that. So you are a psychologist.
I am.
What got you into the field?
Being a parent and seeing how children struggled in school and in learning, and how different approaches to learning affected children.
Yeah. Did you already have a degree in something?
No.
Okay.
No. I actually was working for my husband for his service business. He's an electrician in HVAC.
Yeah.
And doing all the bookkeeping.
Okay.
And then I thought I'd go back to school to do accounting.
Okay.
And I thought, this isn't what I want to do.
No.
So I was in school when my girls were finishing high school. Our son had already graduated.
Okay.
And we were the three of us were doing college at the same time.
I'm just laughing because I'm like, oh, that was recently. And I'm like, that's not recently.
No, you guys have been out of school almost 20 years.
I know. I was like, oh, that's like, I was like, so you've been a psychologist that long? Wait a minute.
Yes.
So,
yes,
okay. So
yes.
well, then why psychology then?
Well, for diagnosing, to find out what was getting in the way of children learning, what was getting in the way of them acquiring their education as easily as other children, and more the diagnostic side of it.
Yeah.
So, kind of digging deep and becoming an advocate. I mean, because as a parent, when you're in it, it can be difficult. You're trying to help your child, and your life is happening all around you. And the school has the things that they're responsible to do. And sometimes a child can get lost in the shuffle. One of our children was having trouble reading.
Okay. And so then was that kind of like figuring out the field of psychology was interesting because it helps you figure out why that happens? Is that kind of...
And the intervention.
Okay.
It like what is going to get the child where the child needs to be.
So I want to talk about, I'm genuinely curious because I don't know. Like sometimes I'm asking these questions, I already know the answers. I actually I don't know very well. So starting with the choice of psychology. There's obviously a lot of psychologists out there. It's obviously a long process because you have to get a doctorate in it. Correct? Or
well, to work as a school psychologist,
don't.
It's a master's and a certificate of advanced study.
Okay.
So, and that's what I did at Fairfield University. Love Fairfield University.
Yes, I went there too.
Great school.
Yeah.
Great administration. Great cohort.
Yeah.
It was really terrific, and then worked as a school psychologist. And then I knew I wanted to have my own private practice. And to do that, I would have required a doctorate and then become licensed.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So I was able to commute down to Philadelphia, work full-time, commute down to Philadelphia.
My goodness.
And
that's a commute. So just for location purposes, that's a 2.5 hour drive?
Yeah, it's
one way.
3 hours, and
one
we
way.
carpooled. A couple of us carpooled, so we'd stop along the way and pick up different people.
So you're at school in Philly? What school?
Philadelphia College of Osteopathic Medicine.
Okay, and so I'm assuming you're going during like rush hour then, because...
Well, I would leave. Work was great. I was able to leave like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. We'd be like sitting in the classroom at 4, leave at 10, be home at 1, go to work the next day.
How long do you do that for?
It's a 3-year program.
Wow.
The third year, not as much travel.
Okay.
So
I used to, I can relate, but that is not anywhere near as intense. My last year of UConn, I had to go, my undergrad was in sociology, and I was finishing up my last semester or so in the Stanford campus, which is right over here, which is not bad at all. But there was literally one class that they didn't offer down here that was a requirement, so I had to commute to UConn.
to stores.
Which is like an hour and a half or so, which I thought was terrible. Going through New York traffic and then Philly traffic. My girlfriend lives in the or her family lives in the area, so I know the commute. Wow, okay, that's commitment. So you did that for 3 years. You got your doctorate.
I did.
There's lots of different fields within psychology.
Mm-hmm.
Is there, when someone gets a degree in psychology, it sounds I hate to call a doctorate a generic, but like there's a lot of different aspects of, yeah. So what, is there a specific like branch of psychology, or is that how it works? Or it's just like you have a doctorate in psychology and then it's kind of like whatever you,
With the concentration in neuroschool psychology.
Okay. So that's something you took specific classes for, that kind of thing?
We did.
Okay.
We did. And then cognitive behavior therapies.
Got it.
So it was school psychology.
Okay.
So, but it is a doctorate in psychology with the concentration in school psychology.
Got it.
Because you're right, there's clinical psychology, industrial organization psychology.
Yeah.
Forensic psychology.
Yeah. No, and I just, like, I teach jujitsu as well,
Mm-hmm.
and we've been, the gym that I work at, we've been really focused on being better teachers for teaching physical movements and whatnot. Like how do we learn to move, and the kind of the psychology behind that. And we've gotten really into ecological psychology, which has been interesting. I don't know if you know anything, right? But it kind of opened my eyes in the last year to, you kind of know that there's a lot of branches of psychology, but you don't really get it until you start learning something like that. And that branch of psychology kind of flew in the face of a lot of things that I understood, that what I thought was true. And not that that's true or not true, but it's just interesting that there's so many different fields. So you have a degree in psychology with a focus on school psychology.
And it's from Fairfield, it was a school psychology was
The master's.
Yeah, and the certificate of advanced study.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you for explaining that. I was just trying to wrap my head around
So
that.
I was in schools until about a year ago.
Yes.
And got licensed about a year ago.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
So you now, so jumping back to when you first started with like kind of what got you into it. So, you're seeing kids struggle. You have a desire to help, obviously, as any, I would imagine any parent would want to do is help their kid. And so you went the easy route of getting a doctorate.
The easy route.
I'm joking. So what when you, how has it served you? I mean, do you feel like you've attained the knowledge you were hoping to gather? I mean, do you feel like you're
there's definitely more of a knowledge base. I mean, just being in your cohort, being with those professors, you're exposed to additional information. I love being a lifelong learner. I love being exposed to new information, reading new information, talking to people, having an understanding of different things. And to your point, so many things, you can't possibly get yourself in front of all that material and all that literature and research, or just listening to opinion. So being with other people who are doing different things, you again can have that exposure. And it's exciting. It's also invigorating. It keeps you charged. So
the actual practice of
all of it. All of it. It's just, like a conversation like this. You know, you can just like start talking and
exactly. That's why we're here.
we're here.
So you get your master's and you get into the schools. Who you're working with all different types of kids then, I'm assuming at that point, correct?
Yeah. So I was working in an elementary school.
Okay.
And then
K to 5?
K to 5.
Pre-K as well, or just K to 5?
No, K to 5, and then the
Okay.
next year, the pre-K.
Okay.
And working with families whose children from birth to 3 were being referred to special ed.
Okay.
So working with multidisciplinary team
Mm-hmm.
and determining, the placement for the children. And then working with children throughout the year that are already placed in the preschool.
So you're doing the diagnostic testing and
Yes.
the implementation of the services.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
That's good. It's a
Yes.
lot. It's a lot.
Yes. Yeah. And they're little. They're littles.
I know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they're amazing.
Yeah.
How they can, listen to the teacher and they can and sit. Think about being 3 years old and having to sit.
I know. It's so interesting, the life cycle of a student, right? Like, a lot of people that don't work in education think that, and teachers don't hate me, but what I'm saying is true. They think that the high school teachers are like the quote unquote the most qualified in terms of, and what I mean by that, I'm not saying they're not qualified, but
Right.
it's because they're teaching
Calculus.
AP history, calculus. It's like, no. That obviously, yes. Content
Yes.
specific, yes.
Yes.
I'm not going to compare that to a preschool teacher. Like, obviously, you're teaching very different content. But as far as the art of teaching, the skill of teaching kindergartners, like how to function and be in school,
Yes.
that is so much more intense. And it's frustrating because you do all this work. You get them good by the end of the year.
Yes.
And then you send them off and you get a whole new group that needs to learn how to sit and, put their backpacks away and all.
Yes.
And it sounds silly, but it's hard work.
They're life skills.
They're life skills, and it's hard work constantly. So not high
Lots
school
of
teachers.
repetition.
Yeah.
And I mean, as we know, keeping our own selves regulated
Yeah.
and to be able to communicate what needs to be communicated is also a skill.
Yeah.
So I can understand where parents also may feel frustrated.
Mm.
And, how many times have they said, pick up your backpack, put your sneakers away, And it's, they know their child can do it. It's just they're not doing it all the time.
Right.
So being able to model that kind of skill
Yeah.
again and again and
Being
again
consistent as the adult.
and again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And eventually it clicks.
Yeah.
They might be 15, but
Yeah.
but it does. So yes, so preschool was, a lot of that learning and learning through play, so important.
Mm-hmm.
Being able, you could teach executive functions through play.
Yeah. I'm glad you just dropped that. Where I was going to ask you, I was getting to that soon. So you now, from my understanding, you do a lot of work with students with ADHD.
Yes.
And more specifically, executive functioning. What is that? What is executive functioning? Can you explain
What
that?
is executive
Yeah.
functioning? You can Google that and you can get a different response
Right.
again and again and again. It's
Yeah.
all about the same thing, and it is about self-regulation. That really is the big umbrella
Yeah.
to executive function, being able to regulate yourself to ...
Yeah.
to initiate something, to remember something, to be able to manage a big disappointment, to be able to manage your frustration, to be able to attend. The thing about ADHD, it isn't that it's really attention deficit. It's attention everything.
Yeah. I'm glad you said that too. So correct me if I'm wrong. So ADHD is, and I don't know like the exact hormones or chemistry that's going on, but it's a lack of something, correct? It's a lack of
It is a developmental.
Yeah.
It's sort of from the back of the brain up to the frontal lobe.
Yeah.
So and we've learned that the frontal lobe really isn't finished until like mid-20s. So it's just that development is a bit delayed.
Okay.
With
So
children
not a lack
who
of,
have
a delay
ADHD.
Okay.
So say your third grader
Yeah.
might have ADHD and may not be responding to things and have skills that other third graders may have. Russell Barkley, a researcher, executive function, ADHD, found that there's about children with ADHD may lag 30% behind their same age peers.
Yeah.
So imagine the frustration when your third grader isn't doing what the other third graders is. The frustration for the teacher, frustration for the parent, and the frustration for the smart kid.
Yeah.
You know, for that child to know that they're smart and not be able to do the other things or not have those skills online all the time on demand.
Yeah.
And the way I've explained that is we all have printers at home and they're attached to our smartphone or our computer through the Wi-Fi, and you find something, you go to print, and it tells you your printer's offline. And you know your printer's online, the blue thing is blinking, it's plugged in, your computer says it's talking to it, but it isn't. So you have to either turn your computer off or turn your printer off because they're not talking to each other for whatever reason, and you need to reboot.
Yeah.
Kind of like having skills and having ADHD. Sometimes your skills just aren't online.
Yeah.
And being able to work with your child and being able to help them through that because they understand they're not getting it done.
Yeah.
And it isn't willfulness. This is not, I'm not going to do this. This is just, I don't have that skill available to me right now.
Yeah. I think executive functioning and ADHD kind of go hand in hand. Like it's like the first thing as an educator, it's the 1st thing I think of, right? When when I see on paper or even just meet a kid that has ADHD or you see on paper that has ADHD, my mind's kind of thinking like, okay, what are the goals and objectives around or the accommodations, whatever it is around supporting the executive functioning. What are some other things, if any, that may present or often presents in a child with ADHD or an individual with ADHD for that matter, aside from executive functioning, if there is any?
Right. Well, you can have executive function challenges and not have ADHD.
Oh, absolutely. I'm sorry. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
So I'm saying like,
yes.
Other than that, like what are some things that may appear?
I think it depends. There's ADHD inattentive. ADHD hyperactive impulsive, and ADHD combined.
Yeah.
So it really depends on the student, and
Yeah.
it also depends on the environment. And I think that having an environment that ensures the child's success.
Yeah.
So I think it's individual. But to your point, if you're a teacher and you're looking and you see that you have a child who has a 504, an IEP, and it's ADHD, you can ask the parent, what do we know works for him?
Yeah.
Her. How do you have any words or use the same language? If what's working in the classroom perhaps will work at home. What's working at home may work in the classroom.
Communication's key.
So that communication can be really helpful to the child because it is about creating the environment, especially for the littles.
Yeah.
Because they don't have the skills. As adults, we have the skills. They're building those skills. So seeing those skills and modeling those skills and being able to manage your frustration in addition to helping your child manage their frustration can be really important. So breaking things down into small steps. Working memory is a big concern. Being able to hold 3 different instructions in your mind at once.
That's working memory.
That would be working memory.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's taking information, manipulating it, changing it to something else, and coming out with a product. So that can be very challenging if you can't remember step 2.
Yeah.
So lots of visuals for kids with ADHD. And I know some parents get frustrated, like, well, I don't want to do it for them. And I understand that. Walking with them while they're attaining a skill is just being on that path with them.
That's such a crucial statement. Like, it's you're helping them develop a skill. Mm-hmm. Yes, you don't want to do it for them. None of us want to do things for someone else in that regards, right? Like, we want people to be independent in their ability to take care of themselves, right? But you have to teach. It's a skill they need to learn, and you have to teach them the skill. Every skill that you've learned, like, you've learned it. I mean, that's in the the language that we use.
That's the frustration part.
Right.
Like, you know how to do this, but I can't do it right now.
But if you know how to do it, it means that at some point you learned how to do it.
Yes.
And it is a skill. Everything we do are skills. It's something that we learn, right? Unless it's an automatic process like breathing or swallowing. And honestly, even for some people, that's a skill they need to learn, right? Not every, like, God forbid, things happen, and you have to go back to square one and relearn how to walk, relearn how to talk, these things, right? They're all skills. So when people say, it doesn't have to be parents, it could be teachers, it could be anybody, that they don't want to do it for the kid, I would take a step back and think, okay, yeah, you don't want to do it for the kid. How do we get them to a point where we don't do it for them? You're not really doing it for them. You're teaching them a skill. I think you mentioned the working memory. One of my favorite accommodations. Now, every kid's unique, and you want to do what you're supposed to for each kid, right? It's an individualized education plan. But one of my favorite accommodations for kids with working memory for executive functioning is just a simple checklist. And it's really simple. It's low technology. You just need a piece of paper and a pencil. And you write a bunch of boxes and just write down what they need to do. And over the course of a month, you can go from not using a checklist to them independently using a checklist. And it's a month of work. And it's not hard work. It's just a month of work, right? Yeah. And some kids, it might take longer. Some kids might pick up immediately. Obviously, all kids are individual, but it's not like it's something that needs to be this big,
right,
multi-year long project.
Yes.
It's and simply what that is if it depends on the severity of the student, but it simply could be you have a small little checklist. It could be on the size of a Post-it. You just have it on their desk when they come in, and it says something along the lines of I'm thinking middle school, because that's mainly the population I worked with, but it's like take out Chromebook, take out pencil, take out notebook, right? Just 1, 2, 3, open, and then the next, so they do that, they check it off. The next one, open Chromebook, Google Classroom, check assignment for today, check, complete assignment. Then they complete the assignment, check,
submit.
Oh my God. Yes. And that's the thing too, is I'm glad you said that. That's the thing too, is you have to trial these things. Like, go through the checklist and see how much you need to put in.
Yes.
Right? Maybe you don't need to put submit. Probably 99.9% of all kids of all regardless of disability need to have the submit thing in there. I'm sure all my Google Classroom middle school people can relate to that.
That's what I say to the kids. I'm like, I know when you finish that essay, I know. You think homework's done.
I know.
Homework's not done until the teacher has it in their hands or their inbox or whatever it is.
Yeah.
That is when homework is done.
That's such an interesting thing, because we didn't have to deal with that. Like, we turned in our work, but it was this physical exchange, right?
Well, there were also children who that physical exchange was at the bottom of the smushed in a backpack under all the other things that go into the backpack and the lunchbox. And it's like, but I did my homework. Yes, you did.
Yeah.
It's at the bottom of your backpack and not in the teacher's inbox.
Right,
so
right.
You didn't get a grade.
That's tough for kids too, though, because if I have math class at 12, if my math class starts at noon every day, right? Like, say I have an everyday math class at noon. And back in the day, homework was due at noon the next day. Now it's due at midnight.
Yes.
Right? And or 8 in the morning or something, right?
Yes.
And it's I'm not saying that I don't know. I kind of get where the teachers are coming from. It's like, well, it should be due by the time they get to school, because when are they going to do it at school? But I used to I used to do my homework like
on the
last
bus.
minute. Yeah, and it's kind of like, I don't know. I mean, should those kids get punished for that? They're still getting their work done before class.
And that can be really frustrating for parents with a child with ADHD.
Yeah.
Because time. If you read articles about ADHD, you'll see time blindness mentioned frequently.
Time blindness.
Time blindness.
Okay.
It's often now. And it's not sort of before, and it's not later.
So that's referred to as time blindness, not being able to
not being able to know time passing. I mean, think about children getting ready for school, and they have 45 minutes, yet they're running out to catch the bus because the time just went by so quickly. So not understanding the passage of time.
What if I have that? Okay.
There's a great strategy to getting an analog clock and using like an expo marker and marking, which you can do with time timer, which is a physical thing, or now it has an app, and see how time passes, and you can figure out what works for your child. The color going away or the color filling in, and having your child involved with the strategies is really key.
Yeah.
Really key, because what works for you may not work for them. What speaks to you really may not speak to them.
That's
so being
point.
able to have them in the loop and making those necessary tweaks, and being a scientist, do it for 2 weeks and then come back and say what worked, what didn't work. Okay, what didn't work, could we make it work? Would an adjustment get results that we want? And if not, then we're back to the drawing board. But having the child involved can be really important, and sometimes they want to do these things independently, which can be a real challenge for a parent, because they're going to have to make some mistakes. And the thing about mistakes they are learning opportunities. Mm-hmm. So if your child thinks that they can get themselves dressed and ready, and say you give them 60% of that independence, and they're able to do 40%, then you can come back and say, we tried this. I think we need to try a different way. What do you think would be helpful in getting whatever, ...
You just gave so many good nuggets in there. Okay, we're good. You gave so many good nuggets in there. And I don't know if everybody will appreciate each one of those things. So let's just break some of those down, because everything you just said is so critical to just teaching kids, right? To educating, whether as a parent or whether as a teacher or whatever, right? Just learning a skill. So first thing, every kid's individual. How they're going to do things may just be like you, or may be completely different than you. I think a great example that I think about is helping kids track their homework. Some kids like that old school planner, right? Where they write it down. Some kids don't want to be caught dead with that, right? So allowing them to use a physical planner, Google Calendar, their phone, if phones are allowed, just what works for them.
Right. And Google Classroom has a to-do list.
It does. Yeah. To-do lists.
But they have to use it.
Yeah. What do you mean?
If they're not going to use a physical planner, they have to be committed to going on Power School or Schoology or
Aspen
Google
or
Classroom
whatever.
or whatever the digital manager is.
Yeah.
If they're not going to have something written out, they have to be committed to
for sure
doing it.
But what I'm saying is, I think it's key to figure out what works for them.
Yes. Yes.
And the planner thing, I think a big issue with that is honestly it's the school planner. If they're having a really hard time using the planner, get them go to Staples or go to Amazon and just get them their own planner that's maybe it's it's sleek, or it's got a cool look to it. You can make your own. Make your own planner. I think that's a big thing, because the school planners is
it has a lot of information in it that can be distracting too.
Well, I can imagine for ADHD, but also just in general, it's the school's name, 2024, all these bright colors, and it's you just get a nice, a green or a black or whatever, pink, whatever you want it to be. And it's, nobody knows what it is. You open it up. It's just the days of the week, just broken down.
It could be just one of those 69 cents at Staples spiral notebooks.
Yeah.
And you write Monday.
And I think that
Tuesday.
if you really want to try a planner, because I think that it's there's definitely something to writing things down.
I agree.
I personally, I mean, just given technology, I use my phone now for my calendar, but I'm also, I've been writing things down for a long time.
Yes.
And using
that was my task yesterday, to do my month at a glance.
Month at a glance. Yeah.
Month at a glance.
That's good. I do like a week. I kind of do like everything I want to tackle throughout the week, and then kind of break it down day by day of like, okay, I'm going to do this on Tuesday. I'm going to do this on Thursday. And then I check in with myself on Friday, and I'm like, okay, did I get everything done? Yes. Great. No. Okay. Did I get everything important done?
Right.
Okay. Then I can, I can handle these things on the weekend, kind of thing.
Well, a month at a glance. I mean, really the big old desk blotter size.
Yeah. Those are nice. Those are nice.
Because children have responsibilities that aren't just their homework.
Yeah.
They have their sports, they have their family events, they have social events.
Great idea at home.
So having everyone put on the month at a glance what's going on. Because if a child has a long-term project and thinks that they have the weekend to do it, and they've got a family function that has them out of the house all day Saturday, and they haven't mentioned it to mom, and it's Sunday, and going to Staples at 5:00 in the afternoon. So sort of going to the end date. So something's due, say on, in 2 weeks on a Friday. So you backtrack and you see, where do I have the time to do my project?
I think that's really good. I also think, just defending the kid, they have no idea that they have a family event because nobody's told them, right? And then just, Saturday rolls around and they're like, all right, we got to go. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. I have to go to the library. Yeah, like I need to, So that's a great, there's a kid I tutor, and they have like an expo calendar on the wall, and they have 2 different colored expos. One for the sister and one for the brother.
Yeah.
And it's so cool. Like when I'm tutoring him, we do a lot of writing. He does a lot of writing. And so when he's writing out stuff, and like we've talked, and I don't need to be distracting him, and he's just writing, I'll go over and like check out the calendar. I was like, this is really cool. Like they have all their activities and all the things that they're working on. No. I'm on there for tutoring.
Yes, very helpful. And at a glance, you can see, if because that's what we did. It was blue and orange and yellow.
Yeah.
And pink and green and. Yeah. And so you could see who's busiest.
I'm green.
Yeah, right. Where do I need to be?
Yeah.
I mean that, and so really at a glance. The month at a glance, but it also requires the
participation
of everybody.
Yeah.
Because the child is involved with everybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
Their time isn't their own 100%.
And that was in that go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, being able to manage their time, they need to know where their other commitments are.
Yeah, and then what I was saying, that like minute of golden nuggets that you gave there, that was one of them, is the participation of the individual, and that's key. I would even go further. I'm an advocate, so I'm thinking IEPs and whatnot. They should be participating in the IEP meeting. Now, to the extent of which depends on their age.
Yes.
But they should be there at least for a little bit, and I don't care how old they are. They should be there just for, if they're young, a couple minutes.
Yes.
What do you like about school?
Yes.
I agree. What would you want? So I would always have the kids come, and I would always ask. I would always prep them beforehand, and in terms of just keeping them like, hey, it's gonna be all good. Some kids they're not nervous at all. They're like, whatever. And so I'll just let them loose and they can talk about whatever they want. But the kids that are more nervous, kind of explain to them, I'm just gonna, if you're truly nervous, you could just talk to me. We're just gonna have a conversation. Everyone's gonna be listening, but it's okay. We're all there to help you. Here's what I'm gonna ask you, and you can think about it now. And then this is exactly what I'm gonna ask you in the meeting. And I prep them for this, which is simply, they're generic questions, but what do you like about school? What's your favorite subject? What subject do you find the most difficult, and why? And be honest. And it's okay if it's you don't like me or whatever it is, but that's fine. Be honest. That was never the case, but one time, a couple kids didn't like me very much. And then what would you like if when you get to your next year and you have a whole new set of teachers? What would you like them to know about you in order for them to help you learn the best? And that's like the key question there, right? Like all those other ones are you can get great information there, but generally they're a little bit more fluff and kind of get them comfortable for that question, because that question is gonna have them meaningfully participate in the meeting, because they're gonna give you information that could be potentially accommodations, potentially the goals and objectives they want to work on, potentially the strengths and or needs that they need that need to go into the present levels of performance. That question is key. And giving them that question before the meeting gives them time to really think about it.
Yes.
I'm gonna ask you this question, so like you can't hide from it. Like, I'm gonna ask you this question, and also if they have no idea, they can be like, Mr. Clay, I have no idea what I'm gonna say. You can kind of help them coach through it. You know what I mean? Like, I'll tell them, okay, so what I find helps is XYZ. Do you find that helps you? Oh yeah, that's great. Yeah, having extra time on tests or whatever. Yeah, I do like that. Or sometimes they're like, no, I kind of find that annoying when you do that. I'm like, thanks for letting me know. Okay, I won't do that anymore, right? Or I'm sorry you find that annoying, bud, but you know what? It really does help you. Maybe we can find a way where it's not so annoying, right? Like something along those lines. But it's really important to have that at the meeting.
That role playing can work for everything.
Yeah.
And to take that time out, we assume sometimes children know things that we assume they know, or they assume we know things. To your point, Mr. Cletty, I found that annoying. Oh, I didn't know. Thank you for telling me.
Yeah.
So having that rehearsal, especially for children, some children with ADHD have, because of the impulsivity and because of the self-regulation concerns, friendships and playing and socializing may be challenging. So being able to role play, you're going to go to a birthday party and break down the steps of what that looks like.
Yeah.
And if so-and-so, and then role play some things that have happened in the past that the child didn't know how to respond, and give them like 2 responses that they can practice. So when and if it happens, they have that in their toolbox.
Yeah.
And that can be helpful. Being able to provide them with the what ifs, and just, again, it's about skill building. Being able to walk into someone's home and not like run right to the toys. Those kinds of things, or grabs, just different kinds of things that that if you coach them, if you say, let's practice this and walk them through those steps, like, I'm going to ask you the question,
Yeah. It's no avoiding it.
These are the things that are going to happen. Let's practice this. And what you were saying too about, I'm going to ask you the question, for the students in the classroom who have difficulty participating, that can be a great thing in advance.
Yeah.
I can't imagine you haven't done it a million times.
Yeah.
Where you take the child aside, not in front of friends or anything, and say, we're going to have a discussion. It's about the homework book. And I'm going to ask you a question about, and you actually give the child the topic that they're going to ask. And you can even rehearse the question with them.
Yeah.
So that and you can say, I'm going to ask you, I'm going to walk by your desk. I mean, you can give them all the prompts so that they're prepared. If it's a child who too much language doesn't work, then it wouldn't be as much language. You may say, I'm going to ask you first, so that I can just you don't have to think about it and become anxious.
Yeah.
It'll just be...
Oh, totally. It depends on the kid.
It depends on the kid. But those types, when you asked earlier about, what can you, with an ADHD kid, that's really any kid. Executive functions work with all children. It does not have to be a SpED kid, an ADHD kid. And it just is great. And you probably hear from parents, well, they did really well.
There's like a rave going on. I don't know if the microphone's picking it up. I think there's a music store next door.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
All right, good background.
I'm gonna stay. Yeah. Go ahead.
You may have a teacher who just is their teaching style supports executive functions just because.
Yeah.
Like the teacher's like, take out your books, take out your pencil.
Yeah.
And then you may have it, and the parent will say they were great in this grade, and then it's not so great in the other grade, and it may be that teacher feels children that's not her style.
Exactly.
His style.
Yeah.
And the child is kind of floundering because they don't have that skill yet. To your point, the checklist. And a checklist can also be a visual. You can take a picture of the child doing the behavior you want. And that works at home, too.
Yeah.
What does ready for school look like? What does brushing your teeth look like? What does combing your hair? What does having your shoes on and your coat? And where's the backpack go?
Yeah.
You can have pictures of all those things and give the child the visual. Visuals are especially helpful. And even if it's not a physical visual, if you ask a child to do something, you may say, okay, let's walk through that. Let's picture that in our mind.
Yeah.
What that is going to look like.
That's huge.
So that they can have that visual.
That's great stuff. Thank you, Trish.
You know what I think of? I remember our kids had a task. I think it was 4th grade. How to make a peanut butter jelly sandwich.
Go ahead. I know this. Go ahead.
And the teacher then would have
Yeah.
the things to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and then follow the directions written by the child.
Yep.
And I remember that the teacher kept hitting the top of the jar with the knife because in the directions didn't say
open the jar.
Open the jar.
Didn't say open the jar. Yeah.
So for our kids with ADHD, it may be
It's a good lesson.
that type of, depending on their skill set, it may be having to break it down to those really small steps. We assume they know to open the jar.
Yeah.
But we may have to say, open the jar.
Yeah.
But they acquire it, to your point, in a month. They're doing it.
That's the thing.
More easily. It's internalized more.
That's the frustrating thing about working with kids with ADHD, as a model of what an IEP is. And I'm saying this as an advocate and as a special ed teacher, right? We build out these IEPs because they're supposed to be a year-long document. And that's what they are. And they're great for that. But sometimes these skills don't take a year. Sometimes they take like a month or two of really hard work and focused work, but it doesn't take that long. And you can do that. But the problem is a lot of people, I think, don't realize they hear the words the IEP is a fluid document. It's this thing that we can come back to and edit. But I don't think a lot of people really take advantage of that. Take advantage of that. Yes. Right? If you have a kid that needs to work on executive functioning and they need to learn how to write down a checklist, put that goal in, request that goal if you're the parent, whatever it is, request that accommodation, and have them work on it. If they get it done in a month, that's fantastic. They have a skill now. Come back, get a new goal to replace that, to extend onto that, and put the writing of the checklist into the accommodations. So now it's there. So now this kid needs a checklist. They know how to do it. So just monitor that they're doing it. That's all you really need to do.
Right.
It can be, you have to remember that an IEP is that fluid document. You can edit it. You can work with it. And so take advantage of that. Call those meetings. Do these things that help bolster that document, you know?
The other thing, too, is you could write, the child will, master the checklist by, say, September.
You could.
By the end of October.
You could.
And then the next one, then you scaffold it to a next skill. This skill will be mastered by the end of February.
Absolutely.
And then have another skill. This skill will be mastered by April.
Yeah.
So that you can, as a teacher, say this is mastered.
Yeah.
And you move on to, when mastered, the child will go to goal 2.
Yeah.
And then when that's mastered, go to goal 3. And it can be, you can date them.
Yeah.
So
that's a good point. That's a good point.
You may not have to go back to necessarily a PPT. And if the child's not acquiring those skills, then you can go back to a PPT and say, maybe it needs to be reconsidered.
I think that's more of the issue in that I don't know if people see that these goals can be mastered a little bit more quickly than, and I don't know if it's sometimes a lack of consistency that extends these goals out, right? But I guess that's a different issue, right? That's not an issue with the writing of the IEP. That's the issue with the implementation of the skill or the education.
So it can be, what do we want the child to? What skills do we want by the end of the year?
Right.
And we know, and maturation is such a big deal, and giving it its credit is important because especially the littles. 3 months is a big deal. 4 months, 5 months can be a big deal. The child who enters school in September is not the same child in April. So you have to consider they're going to acquire skills just because they're growing up.
I think that's a crucial thing too, is make sure that the goals are skills. I was in a meeting the other day, and I'm not going to say what it was because they'll probably figure out, but it was like the student will improve X, right? Whatever X was. And immediately I'm like, what is that?
What's that?
What are the skills required to perform X? That's what the goals need to be. And so now we're waiting on getting, it's fine. It's why we meet. It's why we discuss. It wasn't like an upset thing. It was just, we can't do that. We need a specific skill. So now we're waiting on the IEP to come so we can see what the goals are.
So that would be one of those. By November, the child will do this.
Right.
And once acquired by February, the child will do this because those are the skills.
Yeah.
The skills build on skills. So you want to include what's that going to look like?
Yeah. And those things, all when you get them all down, and the totality of improving those skills will improve X. But it's not, the goal isn't improve X. I guess that's
you need the steps.
You need you need the skills. You need the prerequisite skills to do the thing, right?
Yes.
If you don't have you have to crawl before you walk, before you run, right? And you need to have, and even then, if you're not learning those, you're gonna have to break those steps down too, right? Like a kid that's learning to walk, it's like, okay, let's start with just standing up.
Well, that's it. It changes what tools you use.
Right. Like you can't walk if you're not on your feet. Right? It sounds silly, but it's true. I'm a jiu-jitsu thing. I tell this all the time when I'm there. It's a grappling art, and we have sometimes your goal is to take the other person down and hold them down, right? But when you're on the ground, you want to get back up, right? Get on top, stay on top. You want to be the top player. So one of the things I'll tell the top player, right, the person that's on top, is just don't ever let their feet touch the floor. And I issue a challenge, and I'll issue it now. Stand up. I will give $1,000 to anybody that can stand up without putting their feet on the floor. Right? And it's silly because immediately it's like, well, you can't do it. You can't, like, you can go to a handstand, but that's not standing up. Like, you need to put your feet on the floor to be able to stand up. You need to have the prerequisite skill. You have to have that, or in this case, that state of your body or whatever, before you can stand up. You have to put your feet on the ground. You can't stand up. You can't be in a standing position without your feet on the ground. Or God forbid, if you don't have feet, like whatever it is, like your knees, your hip, whatever it is, you can't be in an upright position without your feet first being on the floor. So it's really important to, when you're looking at goals, when you're looking at skills, goals and objectives, to make sure that they're skill-based. Make sure that there's something tangible that you can measure, that you can look at and say, you know what, my kid couldn't do this in October of 2023, but in October of 2024, after a year of doing this, he's acquired a skill, or she's acquired a skill that they can now do. Whether that's writing down the checklist, whether that's being able to decode, CVC words, whatever it may be, right? There's a skill that has been learned. It's not just improve reading, or it's not just improve executive functioning, right? Like you can't just write improve executive functioning. Like it's got to be specific skills.
Right, and it would be sort of the child will come into the classroom and within 3 minutes have their Chromebook out.
Yes, you can observe that.
Yes.
I can see that, and you can scaffold that.
Yeah, and
right?
It may be within 10 minutes the child will.
Yeah,
do that,
absolutely.
But by November, it'll be 5 minutes.
That's a good.
And by June, the child will have independently taken their Chromebook out, taken out their homework, signed on to Google Classroom, and started.
Yeah.
Initiate their day.
Yep. All right, Trish, thank you so much. This has been a great talk. If anybody would need to acquire your services, how can they find you?
Online, drtrishbroadbent@gmail.com.
Okay. You got a website?
There is a website. It's under construction.
Under
but
construction.
Also on Psychology Today.
Psychology Today.
And there's a link on the drtrishbroadbent.com.
Your website's under construction. Do you have a URL yet? Do you have a
That's it.
Oh, what is it? I'm sorry. What is it? What is it?
Dr. Trish Broadbent at, oh, you're right. drtrishbroadbent.com.
.com. Okay. I know it's under construction, but who knows when they listen to this episode, right? They might listen to this in a year from now.
Yes.
And your site will be beautifully up and
yes, it will.
super interactive.
Yes, it will. Hopefully
all the bells and whistles.
Yes. Yes. I'm sorry. Yeah. The Gmail is the email and the website is .com, drtrishbroadbent.com.
So Dr. Trish Broadbent at Gmail, drtrishbroadbent.com.
Correct.
That's easy. All right. And then I'll put it in the show notes. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. This has been the SpED Space. Please subscribe on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcast. If you ever need any advocacy services, you can check out my website at www.greenwichseadvocates.com. If you would like to be on the show, or if you want to submit any questions or anything that you would like us to discuss, please reach out to the spedspace@gmail.com. And I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to get some different people on the show. And yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.